Welcome back to Cashed In. This is episode 17. 17 is my lucky number. It's what my birthday is. But today we're joined with the mayor of Slippery Rock, John David Longo, better known as JD to me. But Mayor Longo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you. I've
your
really been
busy
looking
day.
forward to joining you guys on here.
Yeah. So I haven't seen you in a while, and I've been eager to catch up, and you've been traveling to Miami and having a blast down there. We talk about Florida real estate a lot on the podcast. So SLS, you've been enjoying it?
Yeah, thank you for putting me on to it, actually. It's beautiful, gorgeous down there.
Yeah.
Had a really great time.
Did you meet Ricardo yet?
I haven't gotten a chance to meet him or the pleasure, but
Oh,
I'm sure we'll get back.
Yeah,
down
I'll
there
connect
soon.
you to him.
Yeah.
He's so cool. Shout out to Ricardo. But yeah, so you obviously do a lot of real estate development. How long have you been mayor in Slippery Rock?
So I just started my second term
Okay.
as mayor of Slippery Rock. So I'm 4.5 years in now as mayor.
Okay.
And it's a 4-year term.
Yeah, and the landscape, commercial-wise, has definitely changed and improved since you became mayor.
Sure.
And I would obviously allude that to you having some type of influence on what's going on there. So that's where I wanted to start this conversation is, did you have the inspiration to kind of mayor the city based on with a real estate foundation, or how do you bring businesses into the town?
Sure. I'm glad to elaborate on that. And let me start by saying, though, too, that, of course, I'd like to think that coming into office has definitely been a benefit to the municipality. I'd like to think, of course, that I'm affecting a positive change on it, but I have the benefit of having a really great team of people around me that help to get all of these things moving. And so coming into office, it was kind of multifaceted. I was a homeowner already, and so, of course, I saw my taxes going up. I wasn't really pleased with the level of service that we were getting. I didn't know any of the local leadership, so the mayor, the members of council, and I thought that was unacceptable, of course. And so coming into the office, I wanted to change the way that folks approached being in that office, and definitely commercial development, economic development was at the forefront of my thought because, as you know, of course, a tax base is very important to a municipality, a borough, a city, a township. It's through tax dollars, of course, that you're able to fill potholes and offer all kinds of services that your people might need, your constituents. And so it was imperative to me that we tried to create an environment that was conducive to commercial and economic prosperity and growth. And real estate, of course, is at the very center of that. Folks
Absolutely.
like you are helping us to get the ball rolling in that way.
Yeah, I feel like real estate is maybe I'm biased, but it's the foundation of how to grow a city. Mm-hmm. If the real estate foundation is not laid out where it's effective or it's convenient or conducive to how people live, then how do you grow? Like, how do you scale a city? How do you make it successful? How do you make it thrive? And Michael and I are from Newcastle, and we've seen the opposite of that happen in terms of like lack of tax abatements that I'm aware of, lack of commercial landscaping being developed, lack of zoning being wanting to work with people who want to bring businesses in. So it sounds like that was your main objective when it came to the growth of your area.
Absolutely. And yes, we've seen great examples of what not to do from surrounding municipalities. Now, I have to give a shout out to Mayor Fry of Newcastle. He's been proactive in that way, and there are proactive individuals in that community, sure, but we've seen time and again out of some communities where, there isn't a willingness to want to hold the hand of entrepreneurs and of business owners. Absolutely. And, the harder you make it on these folks, the less inclined they're going to be to want to invest in your community. And so that was one of those things that we wanted to change. I hate to admit it, but before I came into office and before the majority of the members of council came into office with me, there was definitely a feeling of frustration on the part of business owners and entrepreneurs. So people who already existed in our business environment and people who were trying to break in to our environment where you could call the office and there was not a lot of help for you at all. And so you were kind of on your own. We've really switched that up now. So if you are an entrepreneur and you want to come and start a business in Slippery Rock, then I'll actually take it upon myself. We'll take time out of my day. I'll bring the manager with me or the code enforcement officer. We'll go and tour properties with you. And I will call local realtors and say, hey, this is the client. This is what they're looking for. Can you help me find a place that is going to fit their business or their needs? And we'll do that. And
I love that.
I let them know, hey, here is my personal number. our manager, code enforcement officer. We will try to hold your hand throughout this whole process so that everything is copacetic between you and us. And we want your business. We want you to invest here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a better all around for the people, the quality of life that people live there and the quality of how you're able to run it. And I wish, I know his hands are probably tied. I don't understand the whole politics of Newcastle. I really don't. So I'm not going to speak on it. But I wish I saw
different ball game there.
It's a different ball game. I've just seen it be very hard for me as an agent in Newcastle to move commercial real estate because of how high the commercial taxes are and how it's difficult to get certain zoning variances.
Right.
So that's my biggest qualm with it all.
Yeah, sure.
So day one, I don't know what you ran on at the time. Day one, what was your strategy? Did you form like an economic growth council or something like that along those lines with already current business leaders in the area? Or how did you do that? Like, what did that look like?
So, let me start by saying again that I was a homeowner. And so I was already kind of tapped into what was going on there because I'm paying taxes, paying attention to what's going on. I worked for North Country Brewing Company, which is right in the middle, smack dab
I go there all the time.
I was there for 5 years, and that helped me put myself through my undergrad and my graduate studies at SRU. And so it was through North Country Brewing Company that I was able to, again, tap into the mind, so to speak, of the business community in downtown Slippery Rock. And so I got to hear all of the gripes and the moans, the complaints of business owners like my boss at North Country and everybody else on Main Street and downtown. And so that kind of primed me going into office. I knew what some of the issues were that we were facing whenever it came to working with, in a partnership with these business owners. And it also opened my eyes in that if our current business owners are not happy with our relationship with them now, there's no way that we can entice a new business owner or a new investment in downtown. And so I had a leg up in that way. So coming into office right off the bat, I already had a working relationship with business owners in town, and that was huge for me. The other part of this was, talking with them and talking with other folks and seeing what is it that you want and what do you think we could do better. And, of course, costs are always at the forefront of this equation, right?
Money. Yep.
And so one of the first things that I proposed whenever I came into office was lessening the fees in the fee schedule that were related with opening a new business. So, for instance, if you open a business, you have to get a signage permit. Now, it might seem like pennies, right? But all of these costs are going to add up over the course of time. And so we were going to slash everything by 25%. So if you wanted a new sign, it was going to cost you 25% less. If you wanted to revise your current sign, so we're helping business owners that existed already, again, 25% off. Liquor license transfers, simple subdivisions, the list goes on and on. Those cost savings are especially important for a new business owner wanting to start a business with us. And every small business owner knows that that's true. And so that's just one of the small things that we were able to do to show people that we're making a good faith effort to want to, again, hold their hand and have a viable relationship, working relationship with the business community. And it's not just that, but it's things like that have since over 4.5 years seen 17 new businesses open in Slippery Rock since I took office in January of 2018.
Wow. 17?
And again, it's not just because of me, but because we finally have a great working relationship with each other at the office and then also with the business community. And so the needs of the business community are much more well understood.
That's fascinating, actually. And you're from Beaver, right? You're from downtown Beaver.
Grew up in Beaver.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, you sold my house in downtown Beaver.
Yeah.
The business district thrives down there because, the city, they do everything that they can to help those businesses survive and prosper and flourish. They'll shut down 3rd Street and they'll, do these little different activities and that sort of stuff to bring revenue to those businesses. And it's fascinating because a lot of them are boutiques. They're not, big national chains that they have down there. So do you have you, since you've been mayor at Slippery Rock, had contact or do you know the city officials in Beaver? And have you tried to kind of pick things from, you said you try to not mimic, well, I guess maybe you do mimic other municipalities around the area to see what they do.
Yeah, I took a lot of
examples. Has that had an
examples.
effect on you? Okay.
Sure. I mean, growing up in Beaver, I was there from fifth grade until I graduated high school in 2008. So I saw what was going on in downtown. And Beaver, the county seat of Beaver, is a great town to look at if you want to use an example as to how a municipality should be conducting business and the kind of relationships you're supposed to have with the business community. Light Up Night is a great thing. So I'm so glad that you said that. When I came to Slippery Rock, we had a Light Up Night of sorts, but there was no closure, no street closure. You know, you didn't have vendors or anything. Folks were kind of walking around in downtown, but there wasn't a whole lot of action. Again, another one of the first things that I did was talk with the folks who were putting on that event, and I said, why don't we shut down the Main Street corridor? Take a look at Beaver and what they do on Light Up Night. That was a great example that I used, and it sold them. And so ever since, for the last 4 years now, we've had a viable Light Up Night. Downtown's closed. Tried our hardest to make it look beautiful and gorgeous the way that they do on 3rd Street in Beaver. And we did that, and it's worked for us.
That's awesome.
I look at other municipalities too. You know, I look at Valant and see what they're doing there. Those are the kinds of things. Zele and Opal, Harmony,
Zele is really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of credit. Those communities, they've really opened up, and it's the business owners that are going to benefit from that, and ultimately, real estate, of course, is going to benefit from it as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's being an agent, you know, you hear everybody's dreams in terms of like commercial in a small town. They're like, oh, I want to make, you know, this type of arcade for people to come and hang out at, or young people to come and hang out because they have nowhere to hang out in Newcastle. Or I want to have a dream of having a coffee shop here. And it's like, we try to make it happen, you know, there. But here's a very important question I have for you. Why is it so easy to open a Dollar General in Newcastle?
Well, I have a few different answers for this, right?
Please let me hear them.
You know, it's a lot easier, of course, for a larger corporate scale business to open than it is for a small business owner to open a business, and that's awful. Yeah, you know, that's the case, but you know, money begets money. And so it's a lot easier for those folks to open up a business that way. The other part of this equation is when you have municipalities that make it hard for businesses to open up, a small business owner that doesn't have a great big budget for an accountant and for a lawyer and for all of those other tools that would help you open a business, they can't compete with the larger scale businesses like your Dollar Generals, your Sheetz, you know, your franchised Burger Kings, Dunkins, what have you. Now, we've had the benefit of seeing a Dunkin' Donuts and a Taco Bell open up in town here over the last 4 years, which we're super grateful for. And the franchise owners of those businesses have been great in working with us, and we're so glad to have them in our community. But you know, I would be lying to you if I didn't think that those types of businesses had a leg up in opening up. You know, it's difficult for a business owner to get started. And a lot of folks don't realize what goes into opening a business. You know, it's easy to see all of the glory, right?
Sure.
Or, you know, when you're doing well and you get to make your own schedule, that's fine. But what folks don't see is the entrepreneur that's putting everything that they have on the line. So leveraging all of their assets, emptying their bank accounts just to open up that business, and then taking a loss for 3 to 5 years before that business is viable and is actually turning a profit. We don't see that side. And so I think that we have even more of an obligation to help the mom and pop type shops, to want to open and make it as easy as possible for them so that they can compete with those larger scale businesses, you know, your Dollar Generals and what have you.
Yeah. So did you offer, because I know in Lawrenceville, like 20 years ago, it was a very distressed area. Now it's they have their own thriving little strip in their community. And I allude that to the tax abatements they offered for 10 years. You didn't pay taxes if you were opening up. It was almost like it was an opportunity zone. I don't think it was an opportunity zone, but it acted as one, where commercials had, I think, 5-year tax abatement, and then residential was a 10-year tax abatement. Sure. Did you offer any type of tax abatements in your area?
I've tried really hard to have this conversation with leaders in my circle, you know, that I work with. And so, for instance, I'll give you my proposal, right? Because what I don't want to see and what you don't want to see is one of these proposals where you see an outrageous tax abatement so that a large company can come in and take full advantage of a town or a municipality. Say, you know, okay, you're going to get 25 years at a humongous cost savings. And after those 25 years, they're going to up and leave, right? You see that very often. Yeah. And so what I tried to pitch was a 3 or a 5-year plan where you would come in and say you were a business and you wanted to spend, you know, we'll say $750,000 on opening your business. If you spent that or more, then under a plan like what I would like to see, you would come in on year 1, you would come in at 25% of the regular tax rate. Year 2, you'd be at 50. Year 3 at 75. And year 4, we would resume at 100% of the tax rate. It's not that easy to pitch something like that. Unfortunately, people are stepping over money, right? And what I mean when I say that is they're looking in the short term. And so they're saying, well, look at all this money that we're going to lose in the next 3 or 5 years on a plan like that.
Yeah.
My argument is look at all the money you're going to make after year 4 and 5 if you get somebody to come and invest $1 million or $2 million in the development. And so that's a difficult conversation to have. The other part of this equation is that school districts levy property taxes. And so it's not always easy for a municipality like mine and a school district to be on the same page on saying, okay, we as a collective unit want to offer these tax abatements. And so what I'm trying to do now is just to convince our council of our municipality of Slippery Rock to look at some ways that we can entice some businesses to make some substantial investments. Now, what I'd also like to do is offer some similar incentives to existing businesses who want to spend $250,000 or more reinvesting in their businesses that exist already, which I think will help to incentivize them to create more jobs or to beautify their properties. Of course, that's going to drive property values up, right? It's going to make things more aesthetically appealing. And what I'm really trying to do is get away from this Mayberry type of Slippery Rock where, you know, it's the 1950s or 60s and it's a small, quiet little town into more of a Cranberry or Wexford type of area. And there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do that because we're right on the I-79, I-80 corridors.
Just going to bring that up, yeah.
At the crossroads of civilization. 7 miles from Grove City outlets. We have Iron Mountain right there. We have a ton of craft breweries, not to mention North Country, which is pretty much the pioneer in Western Pennsylvania for craft brewing. And so we have all of these different ways that we can market ourselves and say, hey, come and invest, come and buy a property here. Let's develop this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have one of the university, obviously, that's there. Yeah. You know, obviously, I wanted to ask you about how you're working together with university officials in that regard. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is Slippery Rock one of the not only but so how's enrollment with the other state schools? Because from what I heard, Slippery Rock is growing, and some of these other ones are struggling.
That's right.
In the same regard.
That's right. The state system is not doing well as far as these schools are concerned, and that's why they're considering consolidation. So some of these schools are going to, unfortunately, they're going to see their staff and their professors, the amount of employees that they have lessened and consolidated. We're going to be sharing some resources, and that's okay because, hey, that's business. Yeah. And so you have to make sound business decisions if you want to keep the business alive. Slippery Rock and us as a municipality are lucky in that Slippery Rock University is one of really only 2 or 3 schools in the entire state system that's still doing well. Yeah. Really, they say that Westchester is the only school that's really doing better than us. But I think it's an unfair comparison because Westchester is a suburb of Philadelphia.
Right, yeah, you can't compare the two.
And super close, right?
Yeah.
Now, we're an hour north of Pittsburgh.
For sure.
Right? And we're an hour and 15 minutes south of Erie. So we're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And yet we still seem to be doing just fine. Now, our school, like any, has its ups and downs, and there's some challenges there. But by and large, if you compare Slippery Rock University to most of the schools in the state system, we're doing just fine. And so that's a really great selling piece for me whenever I'm talking to people about why they should come and purchase a single-family home and raise their children there, or why they should come and open a business up with us. I would be lying.
That's where I was
kind
of getting at with that. Yeah,
the university is definitely a draw.
Okay. Sure. So how often are you having conversation with university officials in that regard?
I'm going to be totally honest in this, and it's really sad to say, but because of the R next to my name being a Republican, in
you're going up against an academic institution. Yeah.
It's a very aggressive blue institution, and that's okay. Sure. I have plenty of friends and family that are on that side of the aisle, and I try to work with everybody. But unfortunately, the R next to my name has precluded me from being involved with, on a regular basis, the leadership at the university. I'm not often invited to many things, and that's okay, though. I'll tell you why. Because we have almost 20,000 people in Slippery Rock Borough and Slippery Rock Township that call that place home outside of the university community. And it's with those people that I have a great working relationship as well. And so we're still able to take advantage of all of the benefits of having a state system school in our midst without having to hold hands with the leadership of the university. Right. It pains me to say that. It's my alma mater 2 times over. Yeah. My grandmother went to Slippery Rock State College at the time. She graduated from there in 1967. And so I have a lot of pride for my alma mater, but unfortunately there's some folks in charge that they don't want to have conversations with folks like me because of the letter next to my name. And so that hurts. And I will say, too, that I think that we could have even more progress by way of economic development.
Absolutely.
If they would have those conversations with me. And so I'm hopeful with the transfer of power to new leadership that it will be an opportunity for us to renew that town and gown relationship.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Because it's not a political thing. Everyone wants to take advantage of what can happen to a city if it just works together and the progress you can be launched forward with. Are you the youngest mayor ever there?
I was the youngest to take office at the time, but I'm going to be 32 in July now, so I don't know if that still qualifies me as the youngest anymore. But certainly when I took office, I was 27 running for office. I was 28 by the time I took the office, and so that was exciting. It was an up and it was a down for me. My youth worked to my advantage in that a lot of people wanted to see a more youthful energy. Yeah,
someone able to relate to problems in the workforce, not someone who's like 80 years old and can't really is not even working. He probably still drives the speed limit because they got nowhere to go. People that drive me nuts.
So I respect my elders. I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy.
I love my elders, which is not when they're driving.
Let me start by saying that. But, a lot of people wanted to see that. And that was the truth of the matter. Everybody that was in local government, whenever I was coming into it, was over 55. Half of them were retired. A lot of them did not have to endure the experiences that you and I, as part of this generation, have had to. Yeah. And so a lot of people wanted to see that. On the other side of that, there were folks that were looking at my youth and saying, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. They tried the same thing in Newcastle.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
People want to change, and that's unfortunate because people who doesn't want to work with you because of the letter behind or in front of your name. And it's a reality, and mayors have to deal with that. Yeah. And so But kudos to you for being able to, in spite of that, I would imagine that the university is probably, that would have to be the biggest tax revenue for the area, right? You would assume
Slippery Rock
right?
University is a fiefdom in our midst. Because they are a state system school, they don't pay taxes.
Oh.
Whoa.
They don't
interesting.
Pay taxes. It is interesting.
Wow.
And so we have this really strange thing going on here where, you have 10,000 students, faculty, and staff. Obviously, that is a great benefit to the business community, sure.
Right.
But you have to look at it from another angle as well. And this is where the equation is kind of hard to figure out. You have to now provide infrastructure for an extra 10,000 students, faculty, and staff every year on a tax base of less than 4,000 people who are paying into the coffer, right? Yeah. So when we talk about roads, so we have 2 state routes that come through our town, and they're aware that there's a university there. But at the same time, our population on paper is actually a lot less than City of Butler, City of Newcastle, Cranberry. And so whenever you're talking with, Department of Transportation, they're looking at other places and saying, there's a much higher population here in this area. We need to take care of that road before we take care of this one. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is there's 20 to 25,000 people in town when school's in session.
Right.
Well, how do you say on paper, I only have 4,000 permanent residents, but there are actually 25,000 people here. It's hard to leverage that sometimes, so that's an issue.
A traffic count, can't you just say this is what's going on? It's a high traffic count. Sure. This is when it's happening.
Sure. So there's that.
Yeah.
But now every other road in our municipality is taken care of by us. Now, how is it that you take care of roads that are used by 25,000 people when you have less than 4,000 people that are actually paying into the taxes that are going to help us to fill those potholes and repave whenever we have to, put salt down, of course, whenever the road's ice over, all of those things.
Yeah.
We also have a volunteer fire department, right? And so they do a lot of work just based off of volunteerism, right? And the way that they fund themselves is mostly through donations. Well, guess what? The majority of their calls are to off-campus housing. I hate to say it, but, somebody lights a cigarette or a joint and that fire alarm goes off, you now have an entire apartment complex that has to empty out of that place.
Right.
Do I begrudge somebody for wanting to light a cigarette? No. But do our fire department, EMS and EMT, by the way, who are great, do they deserve to have to go to those calls every day, multiple times a day, and not get the kind of support that they need to keep that mission going?
Right.
And the answer is no, they don't deserve that. And so, again, we have a hard time trying to balance our appreciation for the university, while also wanting a little bit more by way of support for our infrastructure and for our volunteers to keep the town moving.
Sure.
For the benefit of the university as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you ran at 27, and this was is this right after you came home from Iraq?
So I went to Afghanistan, 2010 to 2011. Whenever I got home, I started to take a look at Slippery Rock. My friends were going to school there, so I was spending more and more time there. 2013, I bought my home there.
Okay.
And it was in the fall. So it was September of 2013, I closed on that house. It was August of 2013 that I started my first semester at SRU.
Okay.
And so I lived in that house. I worked in North Country, went to school, did my undergrad and my master's back-to-back, graduated with my degree in history, my undergrad in history in 2015, my master's in education 2017. Ran for mayor during my last semester as a graduate student at SRU. Took office January.
You're
That's
super
amazing.
impressive, JD.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our paths kind of collided with real estate.
Yeah.
And I met you, I think it was on Main Street. Was it through Michael Molinaro?
It was through Michael Molinaro.
Yeah, he recommended you to call me because you were looking to get into investment properties.
Yes.
So I was going to ask you about your investment journey as well.
Sure.
So we get there. Obviously, you are super Italian, but I'm super American Italian. And your dad was there, and he spoke Italian, and I don't speak Italian. So I think it was like winter.
Yeah, it was. It was freezing.
Yeah, and I brought Skylar, who works with me.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was icy. We get into the house, and this house was, I don't know what this house. It needed the Lord. It was very rough. It was very rough.
It was rough.
And we were kind of like, where the lights, electricity wasn't even on.
Nothing was on. Not
right.
the heat, anything.
So we're looking with the light of our phones, trying to navigate through this house. And I don't know, I can't understand your dad. There's a language barrier there. You're being the interpreter. We're trying to first time meeting you. It's in a cold house.
Sure.
It was just like, it was funny. And then I remember we were in the basement, and we're trying to figure out if this wall's leaning or like.
Yeah.
It was chaos. But that was our first meeting.
It was a great memory, though.
It was a great memory, and I'm glad it happened.
Me too. And we've been friends ever since.
We
right?
have.
So.
You didn't buy the house, but
no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That one was way too rough for us, It
was
and being new too.
Yeah.
That's really intimidating.
Yeah.
When you're talking about wanting to get into investments, right? When you look at a project like that, especially if your spending power is not as high as you might like it to be, you look at that and you're thinking, okay, I need to throw $50,000 in this.
Oh my God! In that house, yeah.
So, sure. And so unfortunately, that one didn't pan out for us.
Yeah.
But since you and I first met that
Yes.
time, my father has since put his home up in downtown Beaver for rent.
Yeah.
And I've moved him and my brother and sister up to Slippery Rock. So we purchased another home in downtown Slippery Rock.
Yeah.
And so I have my home. My dad is about 4 blocks away from me.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I toured that one in Beaver with you. Did I?
I think you did.
With him or
yeah,
you?
It was actually on our street.
Yeah.
So it was right next door almost.
It was a long time ago.
It was. And so we're just getting things moving. Mm-hmm. It's going slowly. I'm pretty busy as far as, my journey as mayor is concerned. And then I'm also teaching for Butler County Community College. And so the investment property route is not my priority right now, but definitely something that I want to get more involved in. I think that it's a great route if you want to try to explore some financial independence and get some revenue coming in. That's not going to take up a ton of your time, although I do know now from experience with my father's property being rented out that there are times where you have to show up. Something goes wrong and you need to be there for your tenant. And so I give a lot of credit to landlords, especially folks that have really large portfolios. But the hope is, of course, that you can get enough in your portfolio. You can find somebody to manage.
Oh, absolutely.
That for you, and then you can sit back and put your feet up and enjoy, that point in your life.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get there. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, Michael is all about that. He's always like changing toilets.
I don't want to change toilets.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
But I'll be definitely giving you guys a call, sometime soon, and hoping that you can help me, investigate that part more, of our lives together, my dad and I, trying to build that portfolio.
Yeah.
So is there a lot of new development in terms of like apartment complexes or that sort of stuff that's off campus right now that's taking place in Slippery Rock?
Yeah, they've built some huge off campus housing communities.
Over the last 4.5 years?
Yes. We have the one is the Grove that comes to mind. That's opened up here in the last, 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive. Sure. But those are outside of my municipality. It's really strange the way that the line is drawn.
Okay.
And so they're very much a part of our community, but outside of our municipality.
What would it be considered?
And so that's Slippery Rock Township.
Okay.
I'm in Slippery Rock Borough.
Got it. Okay.
And then there's also Slippery Rock Township in Lawrence County, just over the line.
Okay.
It's so confusing when I'm listing homes. I'm like, which Slippery Rock is this?
Right.
Because there's three. They didn't come up with different names.
Sure.
So who governs the one that is right outside your jurisdiction?
Slippery Rock Township has a board of supervisors. So there's a group of individuals that help to govern.
Do you guys work together?
We do work together. We have a great working relationship with those folks, and I'm grateful for it. We help each other very often whenever it comes to supporting the infrastructure, patching roads. We also have a local water authority that works with us as well. So again, that's part of that great team of people that I can lean on to make sure that the wheels are moving in the right direction. So it's not very often that I have headaches whenever it comes to making sure that our roads crew is doing what they need to do, or that the water is flowing okay, and that folks aren't complaining about that either. We're lucky, and the township plays a great role in that as well. And we're growing together. But we do have a lot of growth inside the borough as well. People, believe it or not, even with the way that the economy is right now and the interest rates that we're currently seeing too, people are still building homes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're building in the middle of Slippery Rock, and I'm so glad
Inflation, interest rates, I'm glad too that it's still happening.
Yeah.
It just shows the demand for housing that's happening right now. I was going to ask you, how many terms can a mayor run?
I can run as many times as I'd like to, but that's if God would bless me with that, and if my constituents would continue to think I'm doing a decent job. I like to think I'm doing okay, but ultimately they're my bosses, and so they'll get to decide if I want to run again in 3.5 years, whether or not they're going to keep me around.
Got it.
And I hope they will.
For
sure. Based on what we've talked about. Yeah. So we'll see.
So you were, let me see. So you obviously your first term was through the pandemic. Maybe talk about that a little bit. How was that? Obviously working. I would imagine that working with businesses and that sort of stuff. I'm sure that there was a level of communication with the university as well.
Sure.
How was that? So
the pandemic issue started at the end of my first term, and
this was
and things were going great. I started in January 2018. We saw a lot of business growth. People were paying attention to Slippery Rock, which otherwise was kind of a community that was overlooked. Everybody knew of the university. Nobody really realized that we had a community there, and things were going great for us. And then all of a sudden, of course, the world stopped, and everybody was scared all at once. We didn't know what to think. But Slippery Rock took a little bit of a different direction, and under my leadership, it took a lot different direction than a lot of other municipalities, and of course other than the city of Pittsburgh. Whereas most places were closing up entirely, we were taking full advantage of what the state was saying was okay as far as having events outside. And my idea was this. For instance, the folks that usually put on our light up night, they didn't want to do anything because they were concerned about the pandemic. But it's actually the state of Pennsylvania, right, and the Department of Transportation that we were allowed to apply for a permit through to close down Main Street so that we could have a Light Up Night festival outside during the pandemic. Now, believe it or not, Pennsylvania said, okay, that's all right, Mayor Longo, you can close down the street. And they also said we could have up to like 8,000 people in that corridor. Yeah. So I was taking advantage of what the rules were allowing me to take advantage of. And the idea was simple. Let's get commerce moving. If you can't use your place of business inside to sell your beer or sell a meal or what have you, let's open up outside. Folks can drink and eat outside, and we can have a great time. Vendors, you can come and sell whatever it is that you're selling. And we had a lot of great vendors that would participate with us. I also put on an Oktoberfest in our park. We have 75 acres of green space in the middle of downtown. I said, let's have a beer festival. And so folks came again and took advantage of the weather outside, fresh air. And I can say with all certainty that Slippery Rock never had to worry about a violent or aggressive influx of COVID cases to the point where folks were too scared to come outside and conduct commerce to keep these businesses that we love open.
Imagine that.
Imagine
it was
that.
Okay.
It was okay. We made it through.
You lived to tell the story.
I lived. And if anybody shouldn't have, according to the fear, it would have been me. I was out all over the place, shaking hands and doing the thing, continuing on in my role as mayor, because I thought it was really important that that we led by example by letting folks know that you don't have to be scared. It's okay. You know, we can come outside and in togetherness and share camaraderie. We can support these businesses and keep them open so that folks aren't going to lose their jobs. We even came together to do a fundraiser so that everybody in the service industry in a restaurant or a bar in our zip code was able to get cash just in time for Christmas. Now, it wasn't a lot, but everybody was going to get $100 for Christmas.
Yeah,
and being a bartender or a waiter,
it's huge.
I don't know if you guys have ever been in that, but I bartended and waited for a long time. $100 was a lot of money for me, you know, and so we were glad to do that, and the community rallied together through that. And so again, I'm lucky to have had such a great team around me during that time to help navigate that difficult situation. And guess what? We're back to normalcy in Slippery Rock, you know.
And I would imagine that no business, you know, shut their doors, or were there?
Unfortunately, we had a couple that
did.
There were two businesses in particular that one was actually just about to have their grand opening, and it was, I think, scheduled for the day after the governor shut the state down.
Kidding me.
And boom, just like that. And so all of those employees, of course, overnight, they're gone.
Yeah.
Whenever they called back to see if they could come back to get this thing moving, nobody came back. And so you had managers and support staff that didn't want to come back for various reasons, you know, whatever they might be.
Yeah, right.
But you can't run a business without employees.
Right.
There was another business that had opened a month or two before the shutdown.
So newer businesses then.
And then boom, you know, they shut down. So unfortunately, they didn't survive through the pandemic. And then you have some businesses too in the area that, you know, were kind of on the decline a little bit. And so unfortunately, I think the pandemic might have sped up that process. You know, it was probable that they were going to close sometime.
I was going to ask, were they on the verge of closing anyway, or what was this?
That's true for
like
some.
It depends situation.
Yeah, that's true for some, but it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a quitter, and so I'm never ready to concede and say that it's not going to work. You know, and being the mayor of a town or a community like mine, if you see a struggling business, then you want to try to reach out and help them. And so I also use my platform to try to advertise for local businesses and say, hey, come and check out this great business that's offering this great product or great service in Slippery Rock. And I'd like to think that was able to make some of a difference. But unfortunately, you know, we did have a couple of folks that fell by the wayside there. But again, things are picking up. Again, you know, and we're lucky for that. The community rallied together. We supported all of our local businesses and tried to shop local and stay local in that way. And Slippery Rock has that feel that a lot of other communities don't get to enjoy in that regard. Again, very lucky. I'm blessed to be able to say that.
Oh, yeah. Are you working on any developments currently?
We have a lot in downtown that you've seen. I know you've driven past it a few times. There used to be a bank that was standing there. The administration, before I came into office, decided to buy that. And take it off the tax roll. Now, they had a number of reasons as to why they said that. There was a parking lot with that parcel. They said that they wanted to keep that parking lot so that the downtown business corridor would be able to enjoy parking, you know, and all of those businesses would be able to have their customers park there. That I totally agree with, and that was a good thing. Having said that, we have a 14,800 square foot piece of prime commercial real estate located at the corner of two state routes in the middle of downtown Slippery Rock that's off the tax roll right now, and it's not being developed. Now, we have a number of people that are trying to get together, have gotten together to raise money to buy that, to keep it green. My issue with this is that we have in Slippery Rock a ton of underutilized green space. In fact, we have just under 100 acres of underutilized green space, including Slippery Rock Area Parks and Recreation. That is green. Yeah. And so whenever I look at a piece of commercial real estate like that, my mind is not, we need to keep it green so that we could use it for a couple of community events 3 or 4 times a year. In my mind, I want to see a development there, $2 million, $2.5 million development, multi-story if it were up to me. See a couple businesses there, new jobs. It's going to increase the property value, of course. We're going to generate $10,000 to $15,000 a month in tax revenue. You're going to have local earned income tax off of those jobs there, your wage taxes, you know, all of these different things. The school district is going to benefit. And so that's my project right now, is trying to convince our council that we would do well. Yeah. It is our fiduciary responsibility, if you will, to make sure that that parcel is sold to a commercial developer that is going to help increase our tax base so that we can continue to offer services to our citizens without fear of having to raise taxes. Because at the end of the day, my biggest gripe or complaint rather is whenever municipalities or the government mismanages and wastefully spends the hard-earned dollars of our constituents.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying taxes to us because they expect the roads to stay good. They want police coverage, right, to stay safe. But past that, we should not be spending money on things or giving up an opportunity to make money whenever you have the price of goods and services that are going up continuously. In my opinion, if we don't make sure that a parcel like that is developed commercially, we are going to be ensuring that in the next 5 years, there is going to be a tax increase. And I can promise you this, it's not going to be because I'm advocating for it. And if I'm still mayor at that time, I will refuse to put my name on that ordinance. Because at the end of the day, I don't have to put my name or sign my name to that ordinance. I will fight it tooth and nail. And if that ever does come, I hope that I don't have the opportunity to say I told you so.
Yeah.
We should have focused more on economic development.
It's a business. A town is a business.
Absolutely.
It should be ran as such.
Right.
That's a shame. I'm trying to think in my mind, like, what would be the perfect, like, anchor tenant or business to go there. And we could talk about it after.
Sure.
I'm like,
I would love to.
That's where my mind's going. I'm like, what could go there? It's two state routes. I know that it's like you said, you have 25,000 traffic count. It's
14,800 square foot there. We have 25,000 people in town when school is in session. You know, that the traffic is there.
Right, and like companies, not that we're only targeting larger franchises, but they have certain criteria that meets that they would bring in development.
Sure.
So whether it's a big one first, right, and then you have the trickle effect where you have the smaller businesses next that complement it, you know, stuff like that. That's where my mind's going.
Sure. And we're on the same page with that.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important, too, to bring it full circle. It's so important to have a working relationship with the realtors in the area as well, because
we know the developers.
You're tapped in.
Yeah.
You know exactly what it's going to take to try to bring somebody there, a good tenant, right, an anchor tenant or a commercial developer. And oftentimes you are also involved in investments as well for your own benefit. And so, you know, that helps us. Yeah. And I definitely lean on folks like you to help give me some insight into what the market is doing and how we can better advertise to folks and entice folks to want to make an investment through real estate in our community.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that and get back to you.
Thank
you.
you.
Do you have, is it for sale or is there someone like resisting that being sold?
So we go through a bidding process, right? So we listed it for a number of months, and everybody who wanted to put a bid in on it got an opportunity to. Those bids are closed, of course, so that way it's fair. We don't know what that number is going to be. We just open up a bid. We got one bid on that lot, and it's from a group that, again, wants to keep it green. But it's considerably lower than what I might like to see that sell for.
Got it.
And, again, it's going to ensure and promise that we're not going to have any commercial development there, and our tax revenue is going to suffer because of it. And so right now, not that I'm working against actively, members of the community that want to keep it green, but I'm really just trying to make an argument.
You can still develop land and keep it green.
Yeah, sure, of course.
There's ways to, whether it's solar energy or, have something else where it benefits the residents in a different way. It'd still be of good use. It doesn't mean you're putting, a coal mine on the corner of the street.
Sure.
Where it's going to ruin the ozone.
Exactly. Nobody's going to frack on that corner. I could understand if that were the case.
Sure.
But this is not. We're just looking, or I'm rather looking.
It can still be environmentally safe is what I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, of my opinion that if we get somebody to make an investment there, it's going to raise a flag out to all of the other commercial developers in the area that will say, look at those folks that took a gamble on Slippery Rock. Yeah. Maybe we need to be there too.
For sure.
And so that's my hope.
There's green tax abatements too, if you're a green type of commercial business.
There are, and I would love to have that conversation with leaders in our community too. How can we entice commercial development while also keeping that green feel?
Yeah.
There are ways to do that, and I'm not against it. I drive a Tesla.
You do.
I'm not against the green movement, so to speak, but there are ways to be environmentally conscious without hurting your economy.
Absolutely.
Right? We need to take advantage, especially right now with the way our economy is going. We need to take advantage of everything that we can to make sure that folks are going to have money in their pockets so that they can put food on the table and have a roof over their head and have a little bit of fun with their families.
Absolutely. You should, we can cut this out if you don't want me to say it, but we should grow marijuana there. So that way it's green and it's a booming business.
That is a really interesting take. I think that no matter what anybody thinks in a position like mine, it looks like the writing is on the wall, and we're going to see that kind of business in Pennsylvania here in the very near future.
It's green. You could have a nursery there. You could grow oregano, grow marijuana. It's everything.
Who knows? And look.
Put me on the board.
At the end, I would love to have somebody with a mind like yours in our team. And look, at the end of the day, commerce is commerce.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's worth having a conversation to see what the benefits are of commercial growth in that regard. I know there are folks that are opposed to things like that, but I think that there's a
college
compromise
right there.
and there's a way.
It's perfect business.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So, okay. In terms of your investment journey, what's your biggest hurdle? Just time?
Certainly time.
Yeah.
And I would be lying, of course, if I didn't tell you that I think that I don't have the skill set to manage a property by myself.
But
and I think
you do. You manage a city.
I could, but I'm not a carpenter or a mason.
That's true.
And so whenever you're looking at costs, it's a lot more cost effective if you're able to do those things on your own rather than hire a contractor, especially with the price of goods and services going up the way that they are. And so whenever you have that kind of skill set, now my father definitely has that skill set.
Yeah.
So that's what gives us a little bit of a leg up. But we still have people that we need to lean on if we want to do certain things. So time is an issue, and certainly money as well. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. If we need to finance a property, I'm not looking to finance at the interest rates that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, they're wild.
Right? And that's stopping a lot of folks from making those kinds of investments. And
So
this is an issue.
I think Michael has a contradicting idea to that. It's about interest rates.
Well, I'm not deterred by interest rates. As it relates to residential, just because if it's the right property in the right area and you have a thriving, economy like you guys, from the sounds of it, I'm not deterred by it. I was thinking, because I looked at Slippery Rock years ago for student housing. I didn't pull the trigger. I looked at a couple different properties, bigger properties, 4 or 5 bedrooms, because you're able to rent those out by the room. The idea of student housing scares me a little bit just because it's student housing.
I know.
But, you have different safeguards in place, prior to that protect you from that. But in terms of interest rates, especially there, your margins are still really good. And, you're not spending $500,000-$600,000 on a single family home with 4 bedrooms in Slippery Rock. You're just not. You could get something for a reasonable price. And your margins are pretty good. Yeah. So, if the rates go from, 4% to 5-6%, historically still really low. Your payment might be $100 more. Okay, so you make $900 a month on that property instead of $1,000. It's a win-win, across the board. But
low taxes because of Mayor Longo.
Low taxes, right.
And I agree with you. For the most part on that, it's my dad actually that I'm having an issue with swaying on that one.
Yeah.
But that's I think a conversation that a lot of people that are
I like to hear
in
both
investment-
sides.
Sure. And so he keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
I definitely have some lofty ideas. Sometimes I always shoot for the stars.
Oh yeah.
But then he looks at something like that and says,
"Oh, your dad's deterred by the rates."
My dad is the one that's really deterred by the rates.
I know. I've had that same conversation with family members too that are older.
The fact that I could convince him to buy a house last year, blows me away because he was so vehemently opposed to it, and somehow
just with the pricing the way that it is.
Going,
yeah,
sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
The market was booming.
Wild.
It was awesome for you guys, I'm super happy.
I get that from a house like that you're going to be living in.
Right.
Like that
that's different.
That was more, we've had different discussions around that. Like for investment, when somebody else is paying that principal off, you have the tax ramifications, it's kind of a win-win still. I'm not deterred in any market. And obviously if, the housing market crashes, which I don't think that's going to happen. That's a different discussion, but again, even if it does, you're in a good area. You're still able to find tenants. The mortgage is still going to be paid.
Ultimately, I think that real estate is one of the most sound investments that you can make.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not creating any more land, right? And especially in a college town like ours, that if you ever want to rent that place out, that you're going to be able to make a profit off of it. And so that was really the way that I was able to get my dad in there. I said, look, you can live here.
No question.
If you don't want to stay anymore, it's okay. You can rent it out to some folks, and it's going to pay your bills and then some.
Yeah.
Which is really important for him because, he's almost ready to retire.
Yeah.
He's about 10 years out from retiring. And so I think that once we had that conversation, he realized here's an opportunity for me to make a little bit of money here and to be able to put my feet up finally and say, okay, I got money coming in. I don't need to worry about that so much. Maybe I got to cut the grass, and that's about it.
Yeah, right.
So I saw an interesting take last night on the internet when they were talking about hedge funds. And I work with a fund that tries to buy multiple properties at once. I've mentioned this several times on here. Have you seen someone trying to infiltrate where it's a fund, where it's a group of people, not the individual that maybe, lives in town and has a couple? Do you see companies coming in and buying massive amounts of property? Do you see that starting to happen?
We do. And typically it's with the larger developments that are in town. You know, those are changing hands pretty often, and you do see folks from outside of town. And it's not just one individual, but a number of individuals.
It's normally
that have
cash.
There you go. And typically they're operating that way, too.
And they hold it.
Yeah.
And then it's never on the market again.
Right.
Because either they're going to sell it to another fund.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really interesting point. I don't know, does that concern you at all, being that it is a good place to invest because of the school?
It's a balancing act.
There's no way to regulate it.
No.
And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just
Right.
like I was thinking about it, and it kind of resonated with me. I was like, oh, if these funds come in with all this cash, and it's like it just grows, and they're very powerful.
And let me say too that, you know, I am always of the mind that I never want to try to stifle commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I'm not complaining that there are folks from Texas or from New Jersey that are interested in buying
open market
real estate. Absolutely. You know, that's, in fact, I'm glad for it that you have folks from far away that are looking at a town like ours and saying, again, I want to take a gamble on this as an investment.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine, so long as they are good partners.
Yeah.
Now, if you're coming in and you're doing that, you're gobbling up property, and you are not working with our code enforcement officer and making sure that your properties are safe and that they're up to code and that they look aesthetically pleasing, then, yeah, you know, I got a little bit of a problem with that because you are driving everybody's joy down in real estate. If your properties are unkempt, then it's really hard for me to tell a family, hey, this is a place where you should come and buy a house and raise your family in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to tell a business owner, you should open a business here whenever you have a blighted property right next door.
Yeah.
You know, and so it is a concern of all of ours collectively, but it's a fine balancing act that we have as a university-oriented community. We have to be ready and willing and prepared to accept partners from outside of our town, and that's where that difference comes in whether or not you want to see Slippery Rock be a Mayberry-type place where it's quiet and, you know, folks are going to live there and raise their children there, and their children are going to live there and raise their children there, so on and so forth? Or do you want to see a little bit of growth? You know, I'm of the growth mind.
Yeah.
But what I love about Slippery Rock is that we're able to keep that small town USA feel while starting to get more toward that growth mindset.
Yeah, you're in a good place right now.
We really
I
are.
really enjoy it up there when
Thank
I go. It's very it's a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
It's not far from where I'm from, and it's like, wow, it's actually like a thriving place.
Sure.
And in the same token, do you know anybody selling student housing that I could sell to somebody?
I could put you in contact with a
Perfect.
ton of folks, and especially if it's you and you're interested, then I would love to see somebody.
Not me to personally buy, but I have
gotcha.
buyers.
Okay.
So
Well, I would love if you would buy too. I know you'll take care of your property. See, that's what it comes in. But no, I would love to put you in contact with some folks. Again, you know, I'm always there to try to help the free flow of commerce. And, it benefits everybody.
I love that. Well, on that note, I'm going to call this episode. This was fantastic. JD, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're
Appreciate it.
awesome.
Thank you. It was great
Everything
chatting
very
with you guys.
inspirational. So
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Cashed In.